Hey everybody, so welcome to week 2 of Science Instruction through Remote Learning. I do highly recommend that you take notes while watching this video and also maybe recommend watching it a couple times. So first I want to say very good job last week on adaptations. That is a key concept for this unit, so it's important that you truly understand that adaptations are a trait that help an animal survive and reproduce. The key word there really is trait, so make sure you're looking at seesaw feedback because some of you were putting down behaviors, and adaptations are genetic, so they must be able to be passed on from one generation to the next, and essentially adaptations are found in the animal's DNA. So check back on that feedback. The other thing I want to quickly remind you is a lot of you are still saying that animals can camouflage or blend into their environment. The proper terminology to use there is color protection. And let's be truthful, all animals that we know today have color protection because it helps them survive within their biomes. Okay, so this week, just a review that this is what we already know. So we've already discussed biomes. We just relearned adaptations. We know that animals adapt to their biome, so they adapt to their environment. And then I'm also asking you to remember about variations. So we talked about this when we were talking about genes and alleles, and we were looking at each other and different humans. And we know we're all humans, but we're all very different and unique. And we are going to talk a little bit more about those variations among species. What we want to know is how have we gotten to where we are today with all of our different animal species? So all the ones that we know and love, how did they get here? The first person to really start looking at that was Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is considered the father of evolution through natural selection. So he was the first to discuss the survival of the fittest, meaning that the animal best fit to their environment is the one that is going to survive and pass on their traits. So please understand natural selection takes a very long time because you are passing down these traits. Charles Darwin went to the Galapagos Islands to research. He chose those because there was minimal human contact and interaction with the animals, so he knew that it was natural. The animal he looked at a lot were the finches, which is what you see here. And he noticed that even though they were all finches, they all had a different beak. Through observations, he noticed that they all had different beaks to better fit the food found on their island. So they all lived on these different islands, so there was different food available to them. He saw natural selection occur because the ones best fit, so the ones with the best type of beak in that environment, were able to eat, reproduce, and survive. Two things must be present for natural selection to occur. So there needs to be that variation. So there needs to be differences in a population of the animals, and then there also needs to be a selection process, or you can think of it as a pressure. So we did talk about these peppered moths before, and there's one here with a darker color and one here that's lighter. This is actually a mutation among peppered moths. Way back, they used to all be this color, and these ones survived more because they're harder to see. They have that color protection. However, after the Industrial Revolution and we had all the factories that were throwing the soot and pollution out into the air that covered the trees, now all of a sudden the lighter ones are easier to see and the darker ones actually blend in a little better. So you oftentimes hear about the peppered moths when discussing natural selection because a lot of scientists looked at them and observed their population numbers through this time. So again, the variation was the color within the peppered moths, and then the selection or the pressure was actually the soot and pollution from our Industrial Revolution, because then the birds were able to see the different variations and go after the easy prey. Darwin also believed that all living things have a common ancestor, so that's what we're going to look into today. Okay, so let's start by looking at these two animals. So they both live in a marine biome, they both need to swim to move around, so they have similar fins, they have a similar body structure. So to me, I would assume that they are close in relation, so they probably have a common ancestor. And that's what Darwin would have thought. So we're going to put ourselves in Darwin's shoes. Nowadays, though, we are able to see inside the animals and look at their bone structure. What you should notice is, again, they both have a similar tailbone, kind of all the way down, but then look at these fins. So this dorsal fin, the shark has bones throughout it, but the orca has no bones here. And again, the shark has bones on this back fin, and the orca does not. However, in this pectoral, they have bones here, and the orca does. But if you look at these bones down here, you should be able to see that they actually almost look like a hand. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's interesting. Keep that in mind. And their skull also looks different. So even though, again, they behave similarly, they live in the same biome, if we really look at their bone structure, I'm not really seeing that they're from the same kind of ancestor. Okay, let's look at something else. So now we have beaver and a tiger. Doesn't really look that similar. I would never look at a tiger and mistake it for a human. But if you start, so we know a lot of the differences. We walk on 2 legs, they walk on 4, they have fur everywhere, we don't. But some similarities is they also have 2 eyes, they have 2 ears. So how similar, what do our bone structures look like? When we go into our bone structures, you should be able to notice that they are very similar. So we both have a humerus, we have the ulna, the radius in the same spots, and the carpals, the yellow. But then we start getting down here to the metacarpals and the phalanges and start noticing some differences. But think about how humans use their arms versus how cats use their front paws. It's a little different. So even though we have similar bone structure, which to me kind of makes me think that we're coming from a common ancestor, we have different needs and we have different functions that we need to be able to do in our everyday lives. So our bones must have evolved to fit what we need. Okay. So what we call that is homologous structures. This is a structure that is formed in a similar way and share a similar pattern of bone structure, but take on different forms and different functions. So here's our human, the cat, the whale, and the bat. So if you notice, there's colors for a reason, to show you that all 4 of these organisms have the same bones, but they have different forms and they all have different functions. So again, we know how we use our arms. We know how cats do, but then whales, they just use them to swim. Bats actually can use it to fly. So we all have similar bone structure, but we fit our environment and our bones change to better fit our needs. So that is homologous structure. So we all have similar bones, but we have different forms and different functions. And again, think about that. If you think you're seeing similar bones, do you think they're more related? Probably. Another structure I'm asking you to focus on is analogous structure. These are structures that are very similar in function and form, but develop differently. So we have 4 different types of wings here. So they're all wings, they're all used the same, so they have the same function, but their structures are different. So the insect, notice, doesn't have any bones. The pterodactyl has a different set of bones than our birds, and then again there's our bat. So if I'm seeing different bones, I'm assuming that they're not that closely related and they came from different ancestors, but they all did get the same function. So both of these structures, homologous and analogous, relate back to evolution. One type of evolution I want you to think about is convergent. This is a process in which 2 different lineages evolve a similar characteristic independently of one another. This often occurs because both lineages face similar environmental challenges and selective pressures. So what that's saying is, in convergent evolution, I have 2 different ancestors. I'm starting at 2 different locations, but because of those different outside pressures, I have come to need the same function as another animal. So I have different ancestors, but I come to need the same function. That's very similar to how we are looking at the wings here. So they have different bone structures, but we can use all of them to fly. So that analogous structures are occurring through convergent evolution. So different backgrounds, similar current situations. The other type of evolution is divergent evolution. This is a process in which one common lineage evolves due to differences between species. This can lead to the formation of new species. This is typically a result of genetic drift and natural selection. So this is where Darwin is coming from. He's saying that we all had a common ancestor, but we have to fit our needs and environment. So we all had that common ancestor, but then through time, we spread out, so that you think of like the tree of life, common ancestor, and we spread out to better fit our environment. So divergent evolution is really actually talking about this homologous structure, that we are all actually related, but we've adapted and changed so that we have survived through natural selection to best fit our environment. Okay. All right, so I want you to take that information, and I do have other resources, other videos that I really highly recommend that you watch. There's also a quizzes review that I think you should do to make sure that you fully understand the topic that I'm asking you to learn. And then there's this worksheet that is going to be due Thursday. You need to turn this in on Canvas. So you're going to download this worksheet into Notability, and then you're just going to fill this out. Okay. Now I've already filled in page 1 for you, but I do highly recommend you look over that. My goal for you is to finish this page, page 2. So you're going to color that in, answer these questions. You're also going to finish page 3. So again, you're going to color that in, answer these questions. There is a page 4, but this is bonus. This is on vestigial structures. These are structures that we still have, but we don't actually need. And there are explanations as to why we don't need them anymore. So if you're interested in that, by all means, you can look at it, but that is extra. My goal, again, is page 2 and 3, and then you're going to upload that right into Canvas right here where the worksheet turn in. Okay. If you are continuing the project, I'm asking you to go to a whole nother module. If I did not receive your DOK for step 3 by today, I'm going to say you're no longer allowed to do the project. You need to come back and do the worksheet I just mentioned. If I did get it, then you're going to work on step 4. Please understand I changed it. I made it a little easier for you. Please, again, reach out to me with any questions. I will be here on Zoom. I also have some extra information here to help you, but right here's the Zoom chat if you have any direct questions. And just remember, this is due on Thursday. Okay? Good luck.